Wow. Prabowo Subianto, the tainted ex-military chief who will be Indonesia's new leader. After 2 failed attempts, Prabowo Subianto has finally clawed his way into Indonesia's ultimate seat of power. The ex-military chief, accused of rights abuse and war crimes during the dark days of the Suharto's regime, has triumphed in a modern-day democratic vote.
A former military commander once barred from entering Australia because of his human rights record is set to become the next president of Indonesia. It's his 3rd attempt to take power in the vast Southeast Asian country. Prabowo Subianto won the first round with about 60% of the vote, ensuring victory. Bill Birtles is the ABC's Jakarta bureau chief. Bill, welcome to 7:30. Just while I get my glasses on, start by telling us, who is Prabowo Subianto?
Well, Sarah, he's 72 and he's lived quite a life. He was born into a relatively wealthy, influential family. He's quite worldly. As a boy, he spent time abroad because his dad was temporarily exiled. He ended up doing some university in London and then joined the military on his return to Indonesia. And it's those decades in the military which really made him as a rising star, but also tagged him with the controversies that linger to this day. In his personal life, he married one of the daughters of the autocrat Suharto. And it was when Suharto's regime was crumbling in the late 90s that Prabowo Subianto was dishonourably discharged from the military, accused of involvement in the kidnappings, the fatal kidnappings of anti-Suharto activists. He went into exile for a few years, but using his brother's enormous wealth, he returned to Indonesia and styled himself as a perennial presidential candidate. He's been running for 15 years. Finally, this week, it looks like he's won it.
You said accusations there, Bill. So a couple of questions. Was it ever finally proven that he had committed those offences? And have the Indonesian people put it to one side and forgotten about it?
On your first question, no. He was dishonourably discharged from the military officially for misinterpreting orders. But there's a level of vagueness to that. There were also allegations at the time that he was part of an abortive coup plot as well. So he basically was sacked, and then as the head of the Special Forces, some Special Forces figures below him were later punished for their role in kidnapping activists, but Prabowo Subianto wasn't. He escaped any jail time. He ended up being able to come back to Indonesia, and on the second point, he's able to sort of rebuild himself because many people they've heard about these accusations for years because he's run for president so many times. And so even though many Indonesians, perhaps not all the young ones, the first-time voters, but many older ones, they're very familiar with these claims and allegations, they also, a great deal of people here, feel that it's kind of old news and it's time to move on. Now,
he is also a continuation, if you like, of the current president's policies. Tell me about that. What is his relationship like with the current president of Indonesia?
It's extraordinary in many ways, Sarah, because he took on Joko Widodo twice, lost to him twice, contested the results of the election twice. 5 years ago, called his supporters onto the streets. They violently rioted here in Jakarta. 6 people died. And then people say this could only happen in Indonesia. Joko Widodo later brought Prabowo Subianto into his cabinet, made him defence minister, even though a couple of decades earlier he was dishonourably discharged. And then for the past few years, Prabowo's been able to rebuild himself as a much more sort of establishment figure, somebody who is willing to work now under the current president, his old rival. And then what happens just a few months ago, we hear that the president's oldest son, Gibran Rakabuming Raka, will join Prabowo Subianto to run for vice president. And because, Sarah, there is still so much loyalty by so many people here to the incumbent, they really like what he's done for the past decade. Many of those people voted for Prabowo Subianto because of the presence of his son. Okay, and then to the very important question, what does this presidency mean for Australia? Will Australia welcome the arrival of Prabowo? Well, Foreign Minister Penny Wong was rather cautious in her statements today, just noting that the initial count is preliminary. She sort of said Australia will work with whoever is the President of Indonesia. But the answer probably is very much yes, because for the past few years, Prabowo Subianto has been the Defence Minister. He's actually travelled to Australia. In an earlier part of his career, he was on a blacklist because of those old allegations of human rights abuses. But in recent years, he has been to Australia. And the Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles, has been in Jakarta twice in the past year, meeting Prabowo Subianto. He says that they've worked very cooperatively on upgrading a defence cooperation deal. So despite the past history, it looks like Australia probably will be able to work quite well with him. But many experts say that Prabowo Subianto does have a reputation for being a bit volatile. He has a famous quick temper, and you just don't quite know exactly what he's going to be like as president.
Bill, thank you very much for today. We're going to want to hear a lot more from you on this topic. Thank you.
Hello friends, we come to the end already. Have you subscribed yet? Yes, press the subscribe button and the like button and also the share button. Thank you and have a nice day.